We welcome Ross Morel to the show. Ross, what's up, man?
Not much. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
How was your weekend?
It was good. We were talking a little bit before the show. So wife and I and her parents, we went over to the Aggie Land Safari, the new one. So that's pretty exciting.
What was the coolest animal you saw?
Coolest animal was the 25-foot black snake. I'm not sure exactly what kind it was. I think it was a python or something, but that was scary but cool.
Yeah. How do you feel about snakes?
I don't personally like snakes, but
so how close did
it was fine behind a glass, cage.
Okay. So did you walk right up and look at it behind the glass, or were you still like, nah, I'm going to stay 5 feet away?
I walked right up to it.
Yeah.
There's a sense of security there, I guess, but
let's jump in with our icebreaker question. What is your favorite superpower?
I looked at these questions and I totally forgot to think about them.
That's okay. Take your time.
Probably want to be able to teleport.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't seem very cool. Probably when I was a kid, I'd say like read minds or invisibility or something. But teleporting would be pretty flying, yeah. But teleporting would be pretty awesome, just to not have to worry about travel time and things like that.
So, where would you go first?
Oh, wherever I need to be. I don't know. That's the biggest frustration in my life right now is just time it takes to travel places, and I tend to get a bit impatient.
Yeah. Tell me a little more about that. So you're moving around a fair bit for your work. You're moving around for family stuff too. What is most frustrating to you about travel time?
Yeah, I think it's so mostly travel for work.
Yeah.
So as a business has grown, there's been a lot more need to go different places, whether it's in the U.S., Europe, wherever just need to be, and more demand on travel. So need to be in more places, not just broader set of places. So I think just feels like I'm just always packing a bag and waiting at an airport, and just being able to cut that time out, especially now that I'm married, have a kid. So
sure,
that time at home is really valuable.
Of course. How do you decide when you need to be somewhere in person versus being there by video conference?
Usually it's in person whenever there's workshops to run or there's certain material we need to present. Video conferencing is great, but some of the projects we work on have a large amount of stakeholders, and it's really difficult to judge people's body language and read a room and understand how they're feeling about something on a video call. So sometimes you just need to get in front of them. You probably also just need to be ideating or, running exercises and stuff with them. So there's different points in the projects that we work on where we try to do some of that. And, that's where it makes most sense.
So would you say it boils down to size of the audience and complexity? It sounds like kind of those are the two things you're focusing on.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I'm still a big believer that, there's not, everybody talks about B2B business, B2C. I think they're all P2P. It's all, personal, person to person. And there's nothing better than just getting in front of our clients and talking with them. I mean, a phone call is great, a video call is great, but in person is the best.
Why do you think that is? It's definitely true, but why?
There's a connection there. I don't know.
Yeah.
You just can't get digitally.
Yeah.
Which is probably weird for a technology CEO to say, but.
Yeah, but it's unquestionably true. I don't know if it's just I don't know what it is about being in a room with somebody, but everybody's better in person. I worked in sales for a little while in California, and for us, the goal was always get in front of the person, sit at their dinner table, talk with them, pet the dog.
Yeah.
There's something about that. There's some kind of magic to it.
Yeah, I think for us, thinking about it is it's empathy. Like we really don't do our job well unless we really, really deeply understand what they're dealing with and what they're struggling with, or what they're motivated by, or what they fear. And you just don't get some of that sometimes on a call. Like you have to be in their environment, see what they're going through. Sometimes I think to understand it. So I would probably boil that down to just empathy.
You talked about body language earlier, just seeing how you like the way you shift in your seat when you talk about a massive snake or whatever. I think it's just a bunch of additional layers to the interaction, but fun stuff to think about, I guess. Give us 60 seconds of backstory.
So I hate talking about myself, but so I grew up in Beaumont, Texas, Southeast Texas. Went to high school in Spring, just north of Houston. Came here for college. Started in electrical engineering. Went and shadowed a dude for like 2 days. Hated that. So I ended up actually in Mays Business School my last 2 years.
Yeah.
Had just phenomenal opportunities outside of the classroom while I was here. Ended up starting my first firm, and that turned into what was eventually Frogslayer. And it's been kind of an incredible journey. Not all good, but definitely a great journey for past 8-9 years.
Yeah.
So.
Let's back up a little bit. We often ask some team building questions from Patrick Lencioni. Where did you so you said you grew up in Beaumont. How many in your family?
5.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got my mom and dad. I have a sister who's 4 years younger, and then a brother who's 18 years younger.
Huh. What was that like?
Weird at first, yeah. It's still a little weird because he's living he's growing up in a totally different way than my sister and I grew up. So
does he get a bunch of stuff that you didn't get?
Oh yeah, for sure.
How do you feel about that?
I feel fine. Yeah. I mean, it's my parents are definitely in a different position, than my sister and I were, when they had my sister and I. So it's cool to see how he has opportunities we didn't have, and it's also interesting to see how their parenting style has changed. They've definitely mellowed out. So
I think every parent does to some degree or another. To me, that's the defining question for oldest siblings: is how do you react when the younger ones get stuff you didn't get? And some older siblings are like, that's not fair. And I think those people gravitate to different areas in life than the ones who say, they should. I want them to get more stuff. I want them to have stuff I didn't have.
Yeah,
I don't know which is better.
I think it's great. I definitely rib him pretty hard whenever I go over there and give him a hard time, and show him a little bit of tough love that I used to get that he's probably not getting now. So, I think it's great though.
We didn't have any fancy smartphones back when we were growing up. That's for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
What was your first job?
First job was a little lawn care business when I was growing up. So, speaking of my brother, he doesn't mow the yard. I'm pretty sure as soon as I could walk, my dad put the lawnmower in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an interesting change. But I had this little lawn care business. I would go around the neighborhood and mow people's yards. I had regular clients, and some paid in money, some paid me in food. It was interesting. So
that's good.
But first real job was I worked at a golf course through high school. I was a cart attendant. So that was probably the funnest job I've ever had.
Now, when you say cart attendant, so you're checking carts out to people, or you're managing the carts while they're being used? I haven't spent a whole lot of time on golf courses.
Oh, it's like you're basically the lowest man on the totem pole. So it's kind of all the above. They call it cart attendant, but you're washing balls, you're doing whatever needs to be done around the golf course, which it was just a fun job in high school.
Did you ever have to drive the cart through the driving range that picks up the balls with like people bouncing stuff off the windshield?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of your all the other cart attendants, there was these 2 big wooded areas on either side of the driving range. So they're in there like punching out all the balls that people hit all in the wood. So you're getting it from all sides. But
excellent.
Yeah, pretty fun.
What was your greatest challenge as a child?
I say as a child, I probably really struggled with shyness and just speaking. I hated just talking to people. So this interaction when I was a kid would just terrify me.
Yeah.
And I was also just like terribly shy. So I had, just a few friends, and that was it. I think I even had a really close imaginary friend for a while. So yeah. So I would say shyness, but my grandpa definitely, I think being around him and him making me speak up and not, just kind of accepting that was actually a good thing. So I think he kind of helped push me out of that.
I don't think you said this earlier. What did your parents do, and how did that impact you?
My dad worked, so he was in like building technology, so like fire alarm systems, security systems, HVAC control systems. So he pretty much bounced between a couple of big companies that do that work, and he helped build buildings and install those systems and sell them, and operate those business units. And kind of seeing him start literally like in the warehouse and kind of work all the way up, the ladder was pretty cool to see, like growing up. And he got kind of made a name for himself in that business, like going and turning around these like operating units around the country for these two different companies. So, that was really cool to see. And he worked really hard to do that. Growing up, my mom had a few different jobs. She was mostly a teller and a substitute teacher when I was in elementary, middle school, high school. So I think biggest thing I take away from thinking about that is just how they set such a good example for my sister and I of like what hard work was and what it means and why it's important. So that's definitely something I've never shied away from is hard work. And probably Holly can attest. Sometimes I work too hard, but I don't know. I think they did a good job setting that example.
What does working too hard entail to you?
When you're getting diminishing returns.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say like at some point you get past the peak of productivity and you're just not producing good stuff, but you just keep doing it. And it's like you really just should walk away for a bit.
This is okay. So this is fascinating stuff to me because I feel like to a degree, if you can work, here's my experience. If you can work 20 hours a week on something, you get returns of X, whatever X is. And if you can work 40 hours on something, your returns on that thing, whatever that thing is, are not 2, but like 3X. Up to 60 hours is like 5X. But then at some point out there on the horizon, exactly as you said, you run into the point of, okay, your marginal hour on whatever it is that you're doing actually hurts you rather than helps you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so where is that point for you? To me, it hits, if we're just talking in terms of work productivity, I feel like it probably hits around 80, 85 hours a week. Now, I don't want to work that much. It's there, you sacrifice all kinds of stuff elsewhere in life if you're working that much all the time.
I wouldn't say it's like it's not like a constant number. I would say it depends on, I notice like, there's different seasons of life, that you might have or, cycles that you're going through.
As we're both experiencing.
Yeah. And, for example, when my daughter was first born, I took 4 weeks off and just stayed at home, and that was awesome. But there was a few like periods in there where I couldn't really help much. My mother-in-law stayed with us, which was awesome, but I couldn't really help much. And so, yeah, there was a few like days in there where I just crushed out, 16, 18-hour work days, and they were super productive, but that's not sustainable, day after day.
Tell that to football coaches.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think it depends on kind of the state of mind you're in, the season of life you're in, what's going on around you. But there's definitely finding balance is good. You can't forget that you've got to walk away sometimes and just come back to it.
How did you decide to become an entrepreneur, or was it a conscious decision?
No, it decided it for me.
Okay.
That, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't, intend to start something in probably the purest sense of entrepreneurism. It just kind of happened. A lot of it was, just opportunities that were presented to me and, not really knowing. So I'm a planner. I love planning. I've always like had my life planned out. And I think there was a time. So I started my business right whenever I graduated college.
Yep.
And that sort of spawned out of this. So I was working as an independent contractor, and that kind of spawned out of that independent contracting opportunity where, I was working on a big project and it was just more than what I could do. And so I went back to the client and said, hey, I think we really need to, I'm thinking about maybe just starting something just to help like facilitate the project. So really initially I started the company just for that one project, and then realized, wow, we have something really special going on. And you know what? I don't really think I want to go work for somebody else. I probably at this point would make a pretty crappy employee. So I think that there was, at that time, it was a lot of, we were all younger. We all had our own ways of how we wanted to work. We knew that we wanted to create this culture that was totally different, that, would attract people, the type of minds and people that we wanted to work with. And, speaking about, effort and work, like, we're in a business that traditionally bills by the hour. And we actually just threw that out the window and said, you know what, you can work when you want, where you want, as long as work gets done. There's not a set number of hours. So I was just thinking of like things like that we could, ideas we could come up with and innovate on and challenge that was fun. There was an aspect of it was just freedom and fun. So I think all along the way, that's what I'm chasing.
Right. The business you founded then was Morelco Technologies. What was it that you started? You said you started this company to help you out with another job that you were doing. And what was it that what was the aim of the business?
Yeah, so I'm smiling because there's not really a short answer to this question.
That's okay. That's okay.
So basically, I was working, on this as part of the software team, and I wasn't developing. I was like a tester. I was again like lowest man on the totem pole.
Sure.
Just kind of like teaching myself as we went. And probably about 6 months into the job, I automated my testing with the help of some of the other team members.
Yeah.
So my boss comes back there and he like just catches me watching Hulu, and he's like, dude, I can't pay you to just like sit back here and watch Hulu. And I was like, well, I'm testing technically. And he's like, no, like it doesn't work that way. And I was like, all right. And he's like, well, I'm going to be gone for, I don't know, a month or so. He was going to go raise some funding, and you got to find something to do. And I was like, anything? He's like, yeah, go find something to do. And so I literally just started walking around the lab. There's probably another 100 engineers there. And honestly, just started knocking on doors and seeing who had projects that needed to be done, and if they would pay for my time to do it, because my boss wasn't going to pay for my time
To watch Hulu.
To watch Hulu. So that was kind of how it started. Ended up connecting with a couple of engineers. They had these little projects, and just started cranking on a few of these projects. And then boss came back. Maybe this is next year, and so we do that for a while. And yeah, that following year, the projects kind of got just more and more, and we were maintaining them. So he's like, yeah, go hire people. So I got to figure out how to hire people. I had to go talk to, HR and, figure out what PO numbers were, and, just all that sort of stuff, how to interview people, how to, just build a team essentially from scratch. And so that was an incredible learning experience when you're in college. And anyway, so I knew that pretty much during that time period, I wanted to go into consulting just as a profession. I just really loved, the aspect of going into a new problem, figuring it out, solving it. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so that was the job that I, those jobs I applied for. And that was, what I had secured before I graduated, was a job at a big consulting firm. And yeah, that thought my life was pretty much set. As I said, I'm a planner, so I figured that would be my path.
But then
the director of this lab we were working for came to a few of us and said, hey, we've been setting aside all this fund for technology development. The stuff you guys are doing is pretty awesome, and we'd love for y'all to do it as independent contractors for us. And that was kind of how it started. So I literally thought I would go do this like big project that they had, and then I'd go get a real job. And so that's kind of the genesis of how it all started.
And then you guys there was some sort of acquisition in the process, and you guys became Frogslayer, which that name is endlessly amusing to me, and I'm sure others as well. But how did that all happen? What can you say, and I'm sure there are things you can't say, but what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Frogslayer was actually a little, they ran what we call a student outsourcing model. So they were here since 2005. So it was started by this other guy named Ross. And that was actually his nickname was Frogslayer. So that's why the company was named Frogslayer. And so they existed since 2005. Mostly what they were doing was taking young computer science students, like really training them up and staffing them on real world projects, which were mostly oil and gas and healthcare projects at the time. So I met Ross in 2011 when I started my company. We hit it off. We had really similar ideas about culture and what we were trying to build. And so in 2012, we merged together and adopted the name.
I have to ask, do you have any idea how he came by the nickname Frogslayer?
Yeah, so it's everybody thinks it's like, a riff off of the Gig'em.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah, but Ross is like this hippie from the Austin area, and he was at a barbecue, stepped on a frog, killed it,
Oh,
shed a tear, and his best friend and wife made fun of him, called him, they started going around saying, "Hey, watch out for the big bad frog slayer." So the name kind of stuck. So he thought it'd be funny. Some of the clients he was working with were like Halliburton, Schlumberger, some of these big oil and gas clients. He thought it'd be pretty funny to have one of those clients write a check to a company called Frogslayer. So it really,
I agree with
yeah,
him. That's
so.
kind of funny.
And I actually hated the name, for the record. I hated the name whenever we started. That was one of our first, one of our big decision points of whether we were even going to merge, because I wanted to get rid of the name. I thought there's no way we can go to market with something so unprofessional. And we decided to poll our friends and family and test it out in the market. We ran some ads, and yeah, that name won hands down. So everybody remembers it.
That is definitely true. That is definitely true.
While we still struggle to have like a good, meaningful story behind it, it sticks in people's minds, which is good.
It does stick in people's minds. Tell us a little bit about Aggie 100.
I've got a question.
Please.
If you were going to start a company, how would you pick a name?
That's a great question. So Kyle and I have been kicking around an idea for a business kind of adjunct to what we're doing here. And it's something memorable is the first thing. Really, what I learned in television writing is the quote that I always think of is the difference between the almost right word and the right word is the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. So, what is the shortest series of letters that tells the full story that you're trying to tell? So, in the name of a business.
And is the domain available?
True. Now, in the case of what you guys did, your win condition was a little different. Like, you have something that doesn't describe at all what you're doing.
Right.
At least everyone hopes that's the case.
Yeah, they think it's we're pest control or video games.
Right. So, but Kyle and I are both we're both pretty much down the fairway guys when it comes to this sort of thing. And I think it's you want something that makes people say, "Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought to describe it that way." But we're not really going to come out of left field with a name either. I don't think we haven't really landed on anything yet. There's one idea that we kind of like, but so you take something. It's like studio executives always say, "Give me the same thing, only different." So it's you take an idea that people will be familiar with, and you figure out a way to describe it that's instantly identifiable, and then you twist it just a little bit. So that's the best way I could think of to describe the process. Tell us a little bit about Aggie 100. What's the story there? What has it meant to you to be selected? How did that go?
Yeah, it's a fun experience. I mean, they throw a big reception, and you get to see a lot of people, and yeah, it's a good experience. And I think one of the big takeaways I have from it is just how impactful. Everybody always talks about the Aggie network and how powerful it is, and it can open doors, and you hear that when you're a student over and over and over again. But when you're in that room and you see those people and some of the same people year after year, you start to realize like the impact that just these 100 people or businesses have on just this much broader just society and the broader world. And it's pretty cool to see that and to think that you might be a part of that. So.
Things that have surprised you over the course of your career. So the day you graduated from college, if you could go back and tell that guy something about the process of owning a business, the process of being an entrepreneur, the process of being a well-regarded Aggie business person, what would you say to that guy that would blow his doors off?
Probably the biggest surprise to me is, again, this is me thinking about myself back then, who was an just a planner, right? I had to have everything planned out.
Yeah.
And so I think probably one of the biggest surprises and shifts in thinking I've had to teach myself is that, you know, life is an experiment, and especially business life. And so just the willingness to accept and embrace uncertainty and to run lots of experiments and do what sticks. And so that can be experiments with people, experiments with tools, experiments with different processes, locations, lifestyle choices. I mean, just being able to experiment in all facets of your life and figure out what works best at that time and adapt. I think I'm a lot more flexible now than I was. And
We're going to come
not
back
in a physical sense at all. But
we're going to come back to that in rapid fire. When you talk to younger entrepreneurs, is that the thing that you focus on? Do you talk about flexibility? Do you talk about the ability to be not spontaneous, I guess, but to let life happen, to embrace risk, to run life as an experiment? Or do you tell them something else?
no, because I think that's one of the things that I actually found that they do really well when I'm mentoring younger entrepreneurs. I think that they have that, and maybe it's a bit of at least the ones that I've mentored. Maybe there's a bit of just naiveness, to it. They don't really know what to do or what's going on, and so I think that at least the ones I've mentored, they've shown a lot more flexibility than I did, and I think part of that is the way that entrepreneurism is taught now, versus when I started, it wasn't even really taught. You got to kind of figure it out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now you have lean startup method, and you have all these these different ways of thinking about startup and entrepreneurship. So I actually find that they are already thinking that way. And the other big thing that's been interesting with students is that they don't necessarily get stuck on their idea. They're willing to move off of it much quicker, which is not the case with, I would say, more seasoned or experienced entrepreneurs or even older entrepreneurs. They get really, really stuck on what they think the right idea is, and they're not willing to change or move off that idea, even when the data is telling them they should. So I would say the biggest thing that I'll offer any of our clients or even any students is that you don't have to have a perfect track record. The biggest thing is that you just have to be right more times than you are wrong. And as long as your win to loss is, you're still winning, that's good. You don't have to have a perfect season.
Right. And I mean, if you have the one win that's just bigger than everything else, like if you have one win that's big enough, Facebook or something like that, then that can make up for all the dumb decisions that you made elsewhere.
Yeah, but you even think about that, like he made a lot of mistakes doing that,
True.
but he made more right decisions along the way than wrong decisions. And so that's what I try to get people to think about, is that it's not the result. Don't try to make the result the focus. Just think about every day you come in, what am I going to do today to win? What am I going to do tomorrow to win?
Oh.
And so really just get people focused on what's right in front of them and how you're going to make more right decisions today than you do wrong decisions. And if you do that over and over and over, like really consistently, the result that you want, may happen, it may not happen, it may be a different result, but you will succeed in some way.
So you're evaluating the whole thing based on a behavioral model.
Yeah.
Okay. The acclaimed sports author David Epstein recently released a book called Range. The basic idea of this book is that it's better to be a generalist and develop a broad set of skills rather than specializing early. He's talking about this mostly in a sports context, but it runs counter to what we hear from Adam Smith, for example, who says that specializing is always better. And sports culture today seems to kind of point that direction. Kids are now picking a sport at age 3. Sometimes they're lucky and they don't really have to specialize until high school, but who's right and who's wrong here? Or are they both right in some way, and we just have to draw a particular distinction in order to see this is where this is better, this is where that is better?
Yeah, I think they're both right, and it depends on where a person's at in their career, their life, and what they're doing. So, for example, like you might be one of the best punters, but I guarantee you that you can probably still run, you can probably still throw a football if you had to. You can probably catch one.
Right.
If you had to make a tackle, you could do that. So
Depends on the punter.
yeah, that's true. So the basics are there, right? And so I think that generally speaking, people are generalists earlier on in their career,
Yeah.
and they might develop specializations. So but if you look at it in a broader context of let's back it up to an even bigger like view. What sport am I going to play? I don't think that. I watched this documentary on this flight I had recently. It's called "The Greatest of All Time." I don't know if you've seen it.
The name's familiar.
So it explores like what made the world's best athletes really good, and Wayne Gretzky's profiled in the documentary, and it was interesting because he credits like playfulness and creativity, and he doesn't credit like the actual sport of hockey or having this really like deep interest in the sport itself or the rules or anything like that as his success. And they profile some other athletes that talk about they didn't actually find the sport that they went pro in until later in life. So I don't think that there's that you have to specialize early, but you're seeing a big push, at least in our field, for developers or designers, having to specialize early. And, for what we do in particular, it's actually better, you want them to get that sampling early on, explore all those things, and then decide. I mean, I know for me, that was why I wish, one thing about my college career, I wouldn't have picked engineering in the beginning. But, because when I did go shadow those people, I was like, well, this really is going to suck. So I don't want to do it. Yeah.
Let's put our money where our mouth is then. Your daughter comes to you and she's 12, 14 maybe, and says, I really want to dial in on this thing. And I think I want to make this kind of my specialty from a coding perspective or whatever. At that age, do you say, all right, go for it? Or do you say, give it another 5 years, give it another 10 years? What's your reaction? Obviously, this is down the road, but just sitting where you are right now, fast forward, you're in that conversation today. What do you say to her?
Support her.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because it's like I said, it's not about like it's not like pushing your perspective on somebody else. Like the perspective of generalist versus specialist, like we all have a different perspective of what that is.
Right.
And so she might be looking at that thing that I think is a specialty, but inside of that thing, there might be all these other like sub-disciplines that are deeper than I even understand. So she might be looking at it going, no, I'm generalizing. I might be looking at it from a higher context going, no, you're specializing, but it all depends on perspective.
Right. As the founder of this company and kind of the captain on the ship, how do you balance the need to work on your own with the need to lead people? How much time do you spend doing people and how much time do you spend doing stuff? And is that a problem for you? Do you want to spend more time doing stuff? I feel like for people at the top of the food chain in a business, they often want to spend more time doing stuff and they just can't.
It's interesting where we're at right now because we've gone through these different levels of growth, and each time we're sort of going up, scaling up one of these particular curves.
Yeah,
it gets really difficult because you have to work on the business and in the business at the same time.
Right.
And we see that with a lot of our clients as well. Sometimes they're their own worst enemy because most of our clients they're large, mid-sized businesses and they're growing, and there's just a lot to keep up with. Sure. And so I've noticed this particular stage of growth, I've fallen into some of the traps that sometimes I'm advising my clients not to fall into.
Oh, okay.
And so it's been interesting because there's all this stuff that's like in my head around philosophies and principles and how we need to be running things. I just haven't documented or gotten out, and so there's this huge need to get that out and document that and put that on paper and transfer that knowledge to other people, or even find the people in the first place to transfer the knowledge to.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, you have your client responsibilities and actually producing stuff for them and getting stuff done there. And then there's, we're a people business. We don't have, we don't sell product, we sell services. So there's, growing everybody else's skill set and their knowledge and skills and capabilities to serve clients. So, balancing all that stuff at this particular stage of growth, I know has been difficult for me. I've had to really learn how to trust even more than I was before, which has been hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I would actually say that my hope on the other side of this, because I feel like I'm kind of getting to the end, I see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of this stage of growth, is I actually hope to spend more time with people, because that's where I know that we get the biggest return, is when we grow our people. For us as a people-based, service-based business, I mean, our balance sheet is our people. It is the capabilities that they have and what they can do for our clients. That's where our return is.
Well said. When you fall short as a leader, as a boss, as an entrepreneur, is that where you fall short? That you're not spending enough time with your people, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, every time.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's probably different for other businesses. And maybe it isn't to a degree, but for us, that's really important, because we sort of view what we do as a profession, the same way attorneys would or doctors would. That's kind of the same way that I view what we do. We have to come in, we have to diagnose a problem, we have to give the absolute best advice we can, and then we have to create a solution and try to help our clients succeed. And so that's a lot of, it's more than just sitting down at a computer and writing some code, which I think sometimes is what people perceive that we do. But it's all this stuff that sort of builds up to that point. Before you can even know what you're going to build, you have to know how, is this even going to get the result for our client that we need it to? And there's a lot that goes into that. And so helping people to think through those problems, attack those problems correctly, you're having to reteach people how to think, and that's a big challenge.
So do you feel that the reason that you don't do as much of that as you would conceptually like to do is because it requires so much emotional energy on your part? What is it that makes you gravitate? If that's the thing, if that's how you win, and you feel like you don't do quite as much of it as you would like, what do you think it is in you or the processes around you that pulls you away from that in some way? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
It's difficult because there's a certain amount that needs to be documented and formalized, sort of institutionalized in a way.
Yeah.
So, I want the things that I go around and coach and the mentoring that I do to be really consistent. But the same thing, people are also asking for hey, how do we do this thing? What is our way of doing things on this particular subject? And so, I feel a real pressure at this point, more than I did when we were smaller, where I could just manage by walking around and talk to people. And, the things I would say were a lot more, consistent day in, day out, because we didn't have as much going on.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel this real pressure to document that stuff and continue, walking around and talking to people.
Everything takes 3 stages instead of just 1.
Yeah.
What has been the single best moment for you? The moment that would warm the cockles of any frosty entrepreneur's heart?
Probably the single best moment for myself, probably for others as well. So our purpose is to create life-changing opportunities for those we serve. So for myself and managers, within our firm, that means that we're trying to create opportunities for people internally, and we hope our teams are in turn trying to create opportunities for our clients and helping them succeed. So probably one of the best moments for me was a retreat we had probably 2 years ago, and my business advisor attended that retreat. And usually we're all business, while we're there, and we're just setting goals for the next year. And my business advisor really he's been a big help to me, because he's caused me to really think about what my purpose is and what my values are, and who I want to be. And he asks some tough questions around that stuff pretty often. And so while he was there, he asked this question. We were eating lunch, I think, and he just pops this question. He was like, "Hey, I'd like to hear about how everybody's story on how Frogslayer's impacted their life so far." And everybody just went around, and it was 30 minutes, 45 minutes later, everybody was just in tears, telling these amazing stories about how Frogslayer has impacted their life in some way or another. And giving them opportunities they couldn't have elsewhere. And that this was before like we had really articulated what our purpose was. And that was when it, finally came together. It was like, this is awesome. Like, this is what I want to be doing and doing for our people. And I think they felt the same way. So that was a pretty amazing moment.
That's beautiful. And it's funny you say that because you asked us offline before we got started what our mission was here. And it's kind of the same thing. It's about, Texas A&M as an institution and Mays Business School as a subsection of that institution. That's what we're doing here as well, is we're telling people stories and we're trying to find out, what has really made an impact on your life and what about this place has played a significant role in you being the person that you are now. Kyle and I talk about this all the time. The best way to get a message across to people, especially to do it in a meaningful way and to do it quickly, is to tell them a story.
Yeah.
Always. So are there any tools or methods you found for managing people that have helped you far more than you expected?
So for me, management is you're put in a situation, and if you're a trained manager, so to speak, you know what levers you can pull to get the result that you want out of a project or whatever you're working on. As a leader, I think that good leaders have this. You think about good leaders through history. They have this ability to go into a situation where it's highly ambiguous. There's lots of unknown variables at play, and they somehow manage to inspire people and create this guiding light that everybody works towards and align everybody towards that. And I'm not the most inspiring person in the world. I can't give some rousing speech and get everybody motivated. But one of the things that's helped me through that is no matter what we're working on, whether it's a project, whether we're working on the business, whatever it is just having a set of principles that guides us. So if it's a particular project, we'll sit down even with our client and together we'll come up with some guiding principles and a vision for what we're trying to do. And just have things that sort of tell the team what true north is and, how we're going to make our decisions. And, just having principles, I think no matter what you're doing has helped. And probably one of the biggest tools. That's one of the things I'm trying to get all of our people to learn and to, really stick in our organization is, just the power of principles. So a great book on this by Ray Dalio called Principles. So I think that's, just that concept and idea is really strong.
It seems like leaders who focus on principle often are successful because really to me, if I had to boil down leadership and getting people all on the same page, it's the best way to get people aligned with your mission is to make sure it's kind of a compromise. Your people are willing to align with your vision if they know that in turn you will take some time to align yourself with theirs. And if you'll figure out what is important to them in terms of how they define success, it seems like, will you help them get the next thing that they're looking for if they're trying to find another job at some point, or if not that you want them to leave, but if they want to take the next step in their career, will you help them? That kind of thing. The trade-off is between how much time do you spend pushing toward this and how much do you turn away from that in order to find common direction with the people who are helping you push toward that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see where you're headed with it, and sometimes it's not. To me, it's not. Principles should define behaviors day in and day out. We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about on this project, for instance. So let's say we're working on some project together. One of the questions I would ask is, Ben, you're managing this project. Out of your team, what behaviors are you going to absolutely be intolerant of from your team? And you might say
cruelty that Kyle shows me on a day-to-day basis has to stop. That's number one. Yeah.
So you might write that down. You might say no jerks. That could be a principle that you have on your, in your project. No jerks or, cruelty allowed. Right. So, it's just little things like that just defining that, it helps create an environment for that team. So it's not so much saying this is the result we want to achieve and writing that down. Like if you're already not aligned with people, probably shouldn't be working with them in the first place. But, from a principal standpoint, it's just about deciding what behaviors we're going to be tolerant of and we want to strive towards versus the behaviors we're going to be intolerant of.
Mm-hmm. Rapid fire. What do you consider your most valuable failure? You talked a lot earlier about running life as an experiment. Of all the spaghetti you've thrown at the wall, what do you think was the best spaghetti that fell off the wall?
The merger. So the merger by everybody's I guess perception was a failure.
Huh.
But for me, when I went into the merger with Frogslayer, we had really, really high aspirations and what we thought it could accomplish.
Yeah.
And with that deal, I was 22, 23 years old, and coming out of that deal, or with that, I inherited 6 business partners who were all older than me. And I learned so much through that. So I don't necessarily, yes, it failed in the sense of like, we had to basically reset after, the partnership broke up. But, gosh, just the amount of stuff I learned from that was incredible. So, but yeah, it was a failure.
What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
I think a lot of people think I'm intimidating, which is, I don't think I'm intimidating. I don't know. It's interesting. Like I had an interview just last week. I was interviewing this student that came in, and she was like visibly shaking during her interview. And I've been told before I just have this like really intimidating effect on people.
Well, you're a tall guy. That's part of it.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm always trying to like trying to make people feel comfortable and disarm them. And it's just misconception.
If you could have anyone as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
Definitely be Marvin Bower. So Marvin Bower was nobody you probably don't know him, but he was basically the guy that built McKinsey and Company from like 1940 through the early 70s.
Okay.
So just I'm a big student of as I've been trying to like grow our firm, like how have some of the most successful firms done it and what was it like for them? So I've really become a student and a kind of a mini historian on the story of McKinsey and some of those firms that started up around that same time period. So he was this guy that was just incredibly principled, and he was like unwavering on, how they had to operate and what they needed to do to be successful. And, and I think even to some extent, you've seen McKinsey maybe in the news lately, and it's not been for good things. And, I think that's because, they may be veering off some of those principles a little bit, but he was really, really strong-headed when it came to, how they needed to act and how they needed to operate and what they needed to be. So,
but something you said earlier about principles, one of the reasons that we're here is because why Mays and why Texas A&M for this show? And the reason for me anyway is because this is an institution where, everybody talks about values. Everybody talks about principles. And when the fat's in the fire, so to speak, you get to find out which people really give a crap about all of that. And which people will say, you know what, I'm going to take care of me today, as opposed to, no, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. And by and large, no place is perfect, but by and large, this seems to be a place where people make those values mean what they say. That matters.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, just my time at A&M, I really felt that. So, that's something I think influenced me personally was, of course you have your rotten apples, you have your people that don't, stick to their values. So cruelty, but, no, it's something that you definitely feel, whenever you're here on campus, I think, and something I know I felt.
Got it. What is your fondest memory of Texas A&M?
Probably my best memories were the first year I was here. I lived on campus. There's just sometimes I'll just look back on that time, and it's like I just want to go back to that. That was fun. It was, of course, it was stressful in its own way, but it was all the experiences you had outside the classroom, being on, beautiful campus, bumping into people, having interactions that you weren't expected. I think there was a spontaneity about living on campus that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. We close each session with Good Bull, an opportunity to recognize someone else for something good or great they have done. Anyone you would like to send some Good Bull?
Oh, my wife. Yeah, for sure. I don't know how many people say their loved ones, but
A fair bit.
yeah. So no, my wife has been just awesome past couple of weeks. I've been traveling a lot and she's been super supportive. So really want to recognize her for just how awesome she's been.
I definitely appreciate that. My wife has been pretty awesome recently too, but I would like to send Good Bull to our friends at Tomball ISD who are with us in studio today, and we're very grateful that they've taken the time to come see what the show's about. So, Ross, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
What a great discussion.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate having you here. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to stay up to date on our latest videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. If you're in a rush or on the road, you can still join us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you want to learn more about us or our guests, please visit our website at mays.tamu.edu/podcasts. Also, please check out Mays Business School's academic programs. They're the sponsors of our show, and you can find them in the description. Thanks, and gig 'em.